The year was 2347, and the human ship called Horizon floated in the darkness of space. Captain Daniel Carter stood on the bridge, watching the stars through the main window. His crew had been traveling for 3 months, testing their new faster-than-light engine. They had no idea that this day would change human history forever. A bright flash of light appeared in front of them, then another, and another. Within seconds, the horizon was surrounded by 12 alien ships. They were beautiful in a strange way, with smooth silver hulls and glowing blue lights. Each ship was at least 10 times bigger than the horizon. "Captain, we are being scanned," said Lisa Monroe, the science officer. She was trying to stay calm, but her hands were shaking as she worked at her console. Before Carter could respond, a voice came through their communication system. It spoke in perfect English, though it sounded like no human voice they had ever heard. "Human vessel, you have entered Federation space. We are the Galactic Federation, a union of 400 species. We have been watching your world for some time. Do not be afraid. We come in peace." Carter took a deep breath. First contact with aliens. This was the moment humanity had dreamed about for centuries. He straightened his uniform and spoke clearly. "This is Captain Daniel Carter of the United Earth vessel Horizon. We also come in peace. We are honored to meet you." There was a pause, then the alien voice spoke again. "We are pleased by your response. Our ambassador wishes to meet with you. Will you allow him to come aboard your ship?" Carter looked at Lisa, who nodded slowly. "Yes," Carter said, "we would be honored." A few minutes later, a column of light appeared on the bridge. When the light faded, there stood the strangest being Carter had ever seen. It was tall, almost 8 feet, and its body seemed to be made of living crystal. Light moved inside it like slow lightning. "I am Ambassador," the being said. Its voice came not from a mouth but from somewhere inside its crystalline body. "I represent the species and serve as a diplomat for the Galactic Federation." Carter extended his hand, then felt foolish. Did this creature even understand handshakes? But reached out with a crystal limb and touched Carter's hand gently. "We know your customs," said. "We have studied your world. You are a young species, but you have achieved something remarkable. You have developed faster-than-light travel. This makes you eligible for membership in the Galactic Federation." Over the next few hours, explained what the Federation was. It was a union of 400 different species from across the galaxy. They had been working together for over 12,000 years, sharing technology, trading goods, and keeping peace. No major war had been fought in Federation space for. "Membership brings many benefits," continued. "You will have access to medical technology that can cure any disease and extend your by centuries. You will have access to energy sources that make your current power systems look like campfires. You will have protection from any threats that might harm your world." Lisa could barely contain her excitement. "This is incredible," she whispered to Carter. "They could solve all our problems overnight." But Carter noticed something that troubled him. "What do we have to give in return?" he asked. His crystal body flickered slightly. "The terms are simple and fair. All members of the Federation share their technology freely. Whatever you develop, you give to the Federation. Whatever the Federation has, you may take. This ensures equality among all species." Carter nodded slowly. "I understand, but I am not authorized to make such a decision for all of humanity. I will need to consult with our government." "Of course," said. "We are patient. Take all the time you need." The Horizon returned to Earth, and the news spread across the planet like wildfire. Aliens were real. They were offering humanity a place among the stars, and all humanity had to do was share their technology. The United Nations created a special council to handle the negotiations. They chose Richard Cole to lead the human delegation. He was a former military officer, known for being calm under pressure and very smart. With him was Dr. Wells, one of the scientists who had helped create the faster-than-light engine. They traveled to the Federation's capital, a massive space station orbiting a strange purple star. The station was so big that it had its own weather. Clouds formed inside its vast chambers, and artificial rain fell on gardens filled with plants from 1,000 worlds. The council chamber was even more impressive. It was a huge room shaped like a bowl, with seats rising up on all sides. Representatives from hundreds of species filled those seats. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that Richard could not tell which end was the front. High Chancellor presided over the council. He was ancient, even by Federation standards, and he looked like a giant floating jellyfish made of light. When he spoke, his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Humanity," said, "we welcome you. We offer you everything the Federation has built over 12,000 years. We ask only that you join us as equals and share what you create." Richard stood before this assembly of alien beings, feeling very small. But he remembered why he was here. He was here to represent humanity, to protect their interests, to make sure they made the right choice. "We are grateful for this offer," Richard said, "but we need time to consider it carefully. This is the biggest decision our species has ever made. We must not rush it." Some of the aliens seemed surprised. Others seemed annoyed. A few made sounds that Richard's translator said meant amusement. "Take the time you need," said. "But know this, no species has ever refused membership. The benefits are too great. The dangers of remaining alone are too severe. We are confident you will make the right choice." Richard thanked the Chancellor and left the chamber. As he walked through the corridors of the station, joined him. "What are you thinking?" she asked. Richard stopped and looked out a window at the stars. "I am thinking that something is wrong here. They have technology thousands of years ahead of ours. They could take whatever they want from us by force, but instead they are offering us everything for free. Why?" Frowned, "Maybe they are just kind." "Maybe," Richard said. "Or maybe they want something from us that we do not yet understand. Either way, I think we need to be very careful. This offer might not be as good as it seems." He turned away from the window. "I need to do more research. I need to understand what joining the Federation really means. And until I do, I am not going to recommend that we accept their offer." Nodded, she trusted Richard. He had never led them wrong before. But she also could not stop thinking about all those wonderful technologies, all those cures for diseases, all that knowledge waiting to be claimed. She hoped Richard was wrong. She hoped the Federation was exactly what it appeared to be. But deep down, she had a feeling that the truth was more complicated. Richard Cole spent the next 6 months studying the Federation. He read every document they provided. He asked hundreds of questions. He visited Federation worlds and talked to members of dozens of different species. And slowly, he began to see a pattern that troubled him deeply. The Federation had not made any major scientific discovery in over 3,000 years. At first, Richard thought he was wrong. How could a civilization with such advanced technology be so stagnant? But the more he investigated, the more certain he became. The Federation was not advancing. It was standing still. He shared his findings with Wells, who had been doing her own research. She had reached the same conclusion. "It makes sense when you think about it," said. They were sitting in a small room on the Federation station, speaking quietly so no one would overhear. "Every species in the Federation shares everything. If you need a better engine, you do not invent one. You just ask another species for their design. If you need a cure for a disease, you do not research it. You just copy what someone else already discovered." Richard nodded. "So nobody invents anything new. Why would they? It is easier to take what already exists." Exactly. The technology exchange killed innovation. Every species became dependent on every other species. They stopped thinking for themselves. They stopped creating. They just copy and share forever. Richard leaned back in his chair. "And if we join the Federation, the same thing will happen to us. We will get access to their technology, yes, but we will lose the ability to create our own. We will become just like them, stagnant, frozen, dead inside. Was quiet for a long moment. The technologies they offer could save millions of lives, maybe billions. Can we really turn that down? Can we really give up what makes us human? Richard replied. Our curiosity, our drive to explore and discover, our need to solve problems ourselves instead of having someone hand us the answers. He stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the purple star cast strange shadows across the station's hull. I have made my decision, Richard said. I am going to recommend that we refuse membership in the Federation. The news hit Earth like a bomb. Richard Cole, the man chosen to represent humanity, was telling them to turn down the greatest offer in history. People were furious. How could he be so arrogant? How could he deny humanity access to cures for cancer, for aging, for every problem that had plagued them since the beginning of time? But Richard explained his reasoning calmly and clearly. He showed the evidence he had gathered. He pointed out the stagnation in Federation science. He argued that joining would mean giving up something precious, something that could not be measured in technology or medicine. We would gain their past, Richard said in a speech broadcast across the world. But we would lose our future. We would become copiers instead of creators, followers instead of leaders. Is that really what we want? The debate lasted for months. Scientists argued on both sides. Politicians gave passionate speeches. Ordinary people discussed it in their homes, their workplaces, their schools. In the end, the decision was put to a global vote. Every adult human on Earth had a voice. The result was close, closer than anyone expected. But when the votes were counted, 53% had voted to refuse Federation membership. Richard delivered the news to the Federation Council himself. The chamber fell silent as he spoke. On behalf of the people of Earth, we thank you for your generous offer. We have great respect for the Federation and everything you have built. But we have decided that membership is not right for us at this time. We wish to develop our own technology, find our own path, make our own future. High Chancellor floated at the center of the chamber, his light flickering in patterns that Richard could not read. This is unprecedented, said. In 12,000 years, no species has ever refused membership. Then we are honored to be the first, Richard replied. Ambassador stepped forward, his crystal body flashing with angry colors. You are making a terrible mistake. You are a young species, weak and alone. Without the Federation's protection, you will be destroyed. There are dangers in this galaxy you cannot imagine. Richard met the ambassador's gaze without flinching. We are willing to take that risk. Arrogance hissed. That is all this is, human arrogance. You think you are special. You think you are better than the rest of us, but you are nothing. Your technology is primitive. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are toys. You will regret this decision. Richard smiled slightly. Perhaps, but it is our decision to make, and we have made it. The human delegation left the Federation capital and returned to Earth. Relations between humanity and the Federation remained polite but cold. Human ships were allowed to pass through Federation space, but they were not welcome at Federation stations or trading posts. Some Federation species predicted that humanity would come crawling back within a generation, begging for membership. Others said they would be destroyed by some cosmic threat before they had the chance. Almost everyone agreed that the humans had made a foolish choice that they would soon regret. But humanity had other plans. The United Nations created a new organization called the Terran Development Initiative. Its purpose was simple: advance human technology as fast as possible. Wells was chosen to lead it. We have fallen behind the Federation by 12,000 years, told her team on the first day. We are going to close that gap in 100 years, maybe less. Any questions? There were many questions. Most of them were different ways of asking how this was possible, but had answers for all of them. We are going to work harder than any species has ever worked. We are going to think bigger than anyone has ever thought. We are going to fail more times than we can count, and we are going to learn from every failure. And in the end, we are going to prove that humanity is capable of things the Federation cannot even imagine. She paused and looked around the room. The Federation thinks we are weak because we are young. They are wrong. We are strong because we are young. We still have the fire that they lost long ago. We still have the hunger to learn, to grow, to become more than we are. That is our greatest advantage, and we are going to use it. The work began. Across Earth and throughout the solar system, humans threw themselves into the task of advancement. Universities expanded their science programs. Corporations competed to develop new technologies. Children grew up dreaming of becoming inventors and explorers. It was not easy. There were setbacks and failures. Projects that seemed promising turned into dead ends. Scientists worked for years on problems that turned out to be unsolvable. Some people began to wonder if they had made the wrong choice after all. But slowly, progress came. A new type of engine that was twice as fast as the old one. A medical treatment that could cure diseases that had been considered incurable. A material that was stronger than anything humans had ever created. Each breakthrough was small by itself, but together they added up to something remarkable. Humanity was advancing faster than anyone had predicted, and the Federation was starting to notice. 20 years after the refusal, Federation observers reported that human technology had improved significantly. 30 years after, they reported that humans were approaching Federation levels in several fields. 40 years after, they reported something that made the Federation Council very nervous. Humans were innovating. They were not just catching up to Federation technology. They were developing things that the Federation had never seen before. New approaches, new principles, new ideas that had no equivalent in 12,000 years of Federation science. Ambassador, who had predicted humanity's downfall, read the reports with growing disbelief. This was impossible. No species could advance this quickly. There had to be some trick, some secret, some explanation that made sense. But there was no trick. There was only hard work, determination, and a refusal to accept that anything was impossible. Humanity had chosen the hard path, and they were proving that it was the right choice. 50 years after humanity refused to join the Galactic Federation, something extraordinary happened. The human ship Aurora appeared at the edge of Federation space and sent out an invitation. They wanted to demonstrate a new technology. They wanted the Federation to see what humanity had created. High Chancellor was curious enough to send observers. A small group of Federation scientists and diplomats traveled to the demonstration zone, expecting to see some minor improvement that the humans would present with great pride. They were not prepared for what they witnessed. Captain Samuel Price stood on the bridge of the Aurora, a confident smile on his face. The ship was sleek and beautiful, nothing like the clumsy vessels humans had built 50 years ago. It looked like a silver arrow, designed for speed and grace. "Distinguished guests," Price said through the communication channel, "what you are about to see is the result of 50 years of human innovation. We call it the quantum fold drive. It does not work like any engine you have ever seen. It does not push us through space. Instead, it folds space around us." The Federation observers exchanged confused glances. Folding space. That was theoretical physics, something that existed only in mathematics. No one had ever actually done it. "Watch carefully," Price said. "We are about to travel to the Andromeda Galaxy. That is 2.5 million light-years away. The journey will take approximately 3 seconds. One of the Federation scientists laughed. "Impossible. Even with the best hyperdrive technology, such a journey would take thousands of years." Price just smiled. "Engage." The Aurora did not accelerate. It did not create a hyperspace field. It simply disappeared as if someone had erased it from existence. 3 seconds later, a message arrived. It was coming from the Andromeda Galaxy. The Aurora had arrived safely. The crew was sending visual confirmation, images of galaxies that no Federation ship had ever visited. Then, just as suddenly, the Aurora reappeared exactly where it had been before. The whole journey had taken less than 10 seconds. The Federation observers sat in stunned silence. This was not possible. This broke every rule of physics they understood. This changed everything. News of the demonstration spread through the Federation like fire. For the first time in thousands of years, there was fear in the council chambers. Not fear of invasion or war, but fear of something worse. Fear of being left behind. The Federation's power had always been based on technological equality. All species shared everything, so no one had an advantage. But humanity had never joined the system. They had developed alone, in secret, without sharing anything. And now they had technology that made the Federation look primitive. Emergency meetings were held. Ambassador demanded immediate action. "We must force them to share this technology," argued, his crystal body flashing with angry colors. "We cannot allow one species to have such an advantage. It threatens the stability of the entire galaxy." Other voices disagreed. "The humans have done nothing aggressive," pointed out a representative from the pacifist collective. "They have not attacked anyone. They have not even threatened anyone. They simply showed us what they can do." "That itself is a threat," insisted. "What happens when they decide to expand? How will we stop them? Our ships cannot catch them. Our weapons cannot match them. We are helpless before them." High Chancellor listened to the debate without speaking. He was thinking about something the human leader Richard Cole had said 50 years ago. "We are willing to take that risk." At the time, had thought it was foolish bravery. Now he understood it was something more. It was confidence. The humans had believed in themselves even when everyone else doubted them. "We will not attack the humans," finally said. "We will not threaten them or try to force them to share their technology. Instead, I will go to Earth myself. I will speak with them directly. I will try to understand what they want and what they are willing to offer." It was an unprecedented decision. A High Chancellor had never traveled to a non-member world before, but these were unprecedented times. Arrived on Earth with a small delegation, he was received with warmth and respect which surprised him. He had expected the humans to be arrogant, to gloat over their achievement, to look down on the Federation that had once looked down on them. Instead, they treated him like an honored guest. Richard Cole, now an old man with white hair and tired eyes, met with personally. Wells was there too, still brilliant despite her age. "I must confess," said, "I did not expect to be here. I did not expect you to succeed. I thought you would fail and come begging for membership within a generation." Richard smiled. "Many thought the same. Sometimes we thought so too, but we kept working, kept trying, kept believing, and here we are." "Here you are indeed, with technology that makes ours look ancient." Light flickered with something like sadness. "I have to ask, what do you intend to do with this power?" Richard exchanged a look with before answering. "That is a good question. We have thought about it a great deal, and we have reached a conclusion that might surprise you." He leaned forward, his old eyes bright with something that looked like hope. "We do not want to rule the galaxy, High Chancellor. We do not want to conquer or dominate. We never did. All we ever wanted was the freedom to be ourselves, to grow in our own way, to make our own discoveries." Continued, "But we have also learned something in the past 50 years. Innovation is not just about creating technology. It is about a way of thinking. A willingness to question everything, to accept failure as part of learning, to keep pushing forward even when the path is hard." "The Federation lost that ability," Richard said gently. "You became so focused on sharing what you had that you forgot how to create anything new. You gave your people everything they needed, and in doing so, You took away their reason to struggle, to grow, to become more than they were. Was silent for a long moment. The truth of those words was painful, but he could not deny it. He had lived for thousands of years, and in all that time, he could not remember the last time his own species had discovered something truly new. "What are you proposing?" he finally asked. Richard stood up and walked to a window. Outside, the sun was setting over a city filled with lights and life. "We want to help you," Richard said. "Not by giving you our technology. That would just create the same problem all over again. You would copy what we made instead of learning to create your own." He turned back to face. "We want to teach you how to innovate. We want to share our methods, our approaches, our way of thinking. We want to help the Federation rediscover the spark it lost long ago." Added, "It will not be easy. It will take time, maybe generations. But we believe it is possible. We believe that every species in the galaxy has the potential for creativity and discovery. That potential has just been buried under 12,000 years of dependency." Considered this offer. It was not what he had expected. It was not what anyone would have expected. Humanity had every advantage. They could have demanded tribute, forced the Federation to bow before them, taken whatever they wanted. Instead, they were offering to help. Why asked, "Why help us? What do you gain?" Richard smiled. "A galaxy full of creative, innovative species is more interesting than a galaxy full of copiers, more challenging, more rewarding. We do not want to be alone at the top. We want company." It was a strange answer, a human answer, but somehow it made perfect sense. Extended one of his glowing tentacles. "I accept your offer. On behalf of the Galactic Federation, I accept." Richard took the tentacle in his hand and shook it gently. "Then, let us begin." The first human teachers arrived on Federation worlds within a year of agreement. They were not scientists or engineers. They were educators, trained in a special program created just for this purpose. Their job was not to share human technology, but to teach the Federation how to think like innovators. It was the hardest job any of them had ever done. The problem was not intelligence. Federation species were smart, some of them smarter than humans in certain ways. The problem was habit. For 12,000 years they had been trained to accept, not to question. When they needed something, they asked for it. When they faced a problem, they looked for an existing solution. The idea of creating something new, something that had never existed before, was almost impossible for them to grasp. Dr. Miller was one of the first teachers sent to the. There were a species that looked like large spiders, with 8 legs and multiple eyes that could see in every direction at once. They were excellent at organization and detail work, but they had not invented anything original in over 5,000 years. His first student was a young engineer named Vex. She was curious and eager to learn, but she struggled with the most basic concepts of innovation. "I do not understand," Vex said one day, her many eyes blinking in confusion. "You want me to design a new type of communication device, but there are already hundreds of communication devices available. Why would I create another one?" Smiled patiently. This was a conversation she had every day. Because the existing devices might not be the best possible design, there might be a better way to do it, a way that no one has thought of yet. But if there was a better way, someone would have discovered it already. The Federation has been developing communication technology for thousands of years. Everything that can be invented has been invented. "Has it?" asked. "Are you absolutely certain? Is there no room for improvement at all?" Vex considered this. "I suppose there are some small problems with current devices. They use a lot of power. They sometimes have trouble with long-distance transmission. They can be jammed by certain types of interference." "Good, those are problems. Now, instead of accepting those problems as unavoidable, what if you tried to solve them? What if you asked yourself, what would a perfect communication device look like?" Vex's eyes widened. This was a new way of thinking, and it felt strange and uncomfortable, but it was also exciting in a way she had never experienced before. Over the following months, Vex worked on her project. She failed many times. She created designs that did not work, prototypes that broke, theories that turned out to be wrong. Each failure was discouraging, and sometimes she wanted to give up and go back to the old way of doing things, but was always there encouraging her. Failure is not the end, would say. Failure is information. Every time you fail, you learn something. Every mistake brings you closer to success. Slowly, Vex began to understand. She stopped seeing failure as something to be afraid of and started seeing it as part of the process. She started asking questions that no had asked in thousands of years. What if we tried this? What if we combined these two ideas? What if everything we thought we knew was wrong? After 2 years of work, Vex created something remarkable. It was a communication device that used principles no one in the Federation had ever considered. It was smaller, faster, more efficient, and completely immune to jamming. It was not a copy of anything that existed. It was something new. When Vex presented her invention to the Science Council, there was stunned silence. Then, slowly, the council members began to applaud. It was an old gesture they had learned from humans, and it felt right for this moment. You have done something that has not been done on this world for 5,000 years, the council leader said. You have created. Vex looked at who was watching from the back of the room with tears in her eyes. I had a good teacher, Vex said. Similar stories began to happen across the Federation. A biologist named rediscovered the joy of experimentation. He created new life forms that served no practical purpose but were beautiful in their complexity. A physicist named Kryes challenged fundamental assumptions about the nature of space and opened up entirely new areas of research. Not everyone embraced the change. Many Federation species were comfortable with the old ways and resented the human influence. They called the innovators troublemakers and warned that this new thinking would lead to chaos and conflict. Ambassador was among the loudest critics. The humans are poisoning our culture, he declared at a council meeting. They are teaching our people to be dissatisfied, to question authority, to reject tradition. This will destroy the Federation. But High Chancellor defended the program. The Federation was already dying, he said. We were frozen, stagnant, going nowhere. The humans have given us a chance to live again. Yes, change is uncomfortable. Yes, it is risky. But the alternative is slow death. I prefer to take the risk. The debate continued for years. Some worlds banned human teachers. Others welcomed them eagerly. The Federation became divided in ways it had not been for. But something else was happening too. The species that embraced innovation began to advance. They developed new technologies, new ideas, new ways of thinking. They became more confident, more creative, more alive, and their success inspired others to follow. Gregory Lane, who had become the leader of Earth's government, watched these developments with satisfaction. He was Richard Cole's chosen successor, a man who shared Richard's vision but brought his own ideas to the work. We are not just teaching them to create technology, Gregory said in a speech to the United Nations. We are teaching them to create themselves. We are helping them become what they were always meant to be. That is the greatest gift we can give. Some humans disagreed with this approach. They argued that humanity should keep its advantages, that sharing even the method of innovation was giving away too much. What if the Federation species eventually surpassed humanity? What if they became threats? Gregory had an answer for these concerns. A galaxy full of stagnant civilizations is dangerous. A galaxy full of creative, growing civilizations is exciting. Yes, they might surpass us someday. That is not a threat. That is a challenge. And challenges are what make life worth living. 50 years after the teaching program began, the results were clear. Dozens of Federation species had recovered their ability to innovate. New technologies were appearing at a rate not seen in thousands of years. The galaxy was changing, growing, becoming something new. And humanity was at the center of it all, not as conquerors or rulers, but as teachers and partners. They had refused to share their technology, and in doing so, they had given the galaxy something far more valuable. They had shared their spirit. Richard Cole, now very old, watched the news reports from his home on Earth. He saw engineers building ships based on their own designs. He saw artists creating works of stunning beauty. He saw scientists making discoveries that even humans had not imagined. "We did the right thing," he said to who sat beside him. She was old too, but her eyes were still bright with curiosity. "Yes," she agreed, "we did." Richard smiled and closed his eyes. His work was done. The future was in good hands. But the story was not over. In fact, the most important chapter was just beginning. 500 years had passed since humanity first met the Galactic Federation. The galaxy had changed so much that those early explorers would not recognize it. The Federation still existed, but it was no longer the same organization. The old technology exchange system was gone, replaced by something more flexible. Species could still share if they wanted to, but they were also encouraged to develop independently. Competition and cooperation existed side by side, pushing everyone to grow and improve. The result was a golden age unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. New technologies appeared every year, each one building on the last. Diseases that had plagued civilizations were cured. Energy became so abundant that scarcity was almost forgotten. Ships could travel anywhere in the universe in moments. The boundaries of what was possible kept expanding. And humanity was still there, still growing, still pushing forward. Director Maya Torres stood on the observation deck of a station called Horizon Point. It was named after the first ship that had made contact with the Federation, a reminder of how far humanity had come. The station orbited a black hole, hovering at the edge where time itself slowed down. Beside her stood Ambassador, whose crystal body sparkled with colors that spoke of contentment and wonder. He was a descendant of Ambassador, who had once predicted humanity's downfall. History had proven wrong in every way. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if your ancestors had accepted membership?" asked. Maya thought about the question. She had asked herself the same thing many times. Sometimes, life would have been easier, at least at first. We would have gained so much from the Federation. But we would have lost something more important. We would have become copies instead of originals. We would have followed instead of led. We would have been comfortable but never truly alive. Maya gestured at the stars beyond the window. Thousands of ships moved among them, ships of every shape and design, built by hundreds of different species. Each one was unique, a reflection of its creator's imagination and skill. "Look at what we have now," she said. "Not just humans, but all of us together. Every species creating, discovering, growing. The galaxy is richer because we chose the hard path, because we refused to take the easy way out." Made a sound that his translator rendered as agreement. "My ancestor thought your species was arrogant, young and foolish. He was certain you would fail. We almost did many times. But you never gave up, and in the end you did not just save yourselves, you saved all of us." Colors shifted to something warm and grateful. "The Federation was dying when you found us. We did not know it, but we were already dead inside. You brought us back to life." Maya smiled. "We just reminded you of what you had forgotten. The rest you did yourselves." A signal chimed on Maya's communicator. It was a message from the edge of the observable universe, where a research station was working on the most ambitious project in history. Scientists from 100 different species were trying to contact other universes, to reach beyond the boundaries of everything that existed. "Director," the message said, "we have made a breakthrough. We have detected signals from beyond our reality. They appear to be artificial. Someone out there is trying to communicate. Maya felt her heart beat faster. Even after 500 years of wonders, there were still surprises. There was still mystery. There was still so much to discover. On my way, she replied. She turned too. It seems the next chapter is about to begin. Then let us write it together, said. They walked toward the transport bay, past displays that showed the history of human achievement. The first powered flight, the first space stations, the first faster-than-light engine, the refusal to join the Federation, the quantum fold drive, the teaching program, 500 years of struggle and triumph, all leading to this moment. Maya paused at one display. It showed a picture of Richard Cole, the man who had made the decision that changed everything. He was young in the picture, confident and determined. Beneath it was a quote from his famous speech to the world. We would gain their past, but we would lose our future. He had been right. By refusing to take what was offered, humanity had earned something far greater. They had earned the right to create their own destiny, and in doing so, they had helped the entire galaxy do the same. Maya continued walking, thinking about what lay ahead. Contact with other universes, beings from beyond reality, challenges and opportunities that no one could predict. It should have been frightening. Instead, it was exciting. Because that was what humans did. They faced the unknown. They asked questions that had never been asked. They reached for things that seemed impossible, and more often than not, they succeeded. The transport was waiting. Maya stepped inside and the door closed behind her. The journey continued. In the council chambers of the new Galactic Assembly, representatives from thousands of species gathered to discuss the news from the edge of the universe. They debated and argued and planned, each one bringing their own perspective, their own ideas, their own creativity to the table. It was messy and chaotic and sometimes frustrating, but it was also alive. It was growing. It was becoming something that no one could have predicted. And at the center of it all, humanity remained, not as rulers or masters, but as partners and friends. They had proven that the hard path was worth taking. They had shown that independence and cooperation could exist together. They had demonstrated that the greatest strength was not in taking from others, but in helping others find their own strength. 500 years ago, a young species had stunned the Federation Council by refusing to share their technology. It had seemed like madness at the time, a foolish gamble that would surely fail. But it had not failed. It had changed the galaxy forever. And the best part was that the story was not over. It would never be over. As long as there were questions to ask and mysteries to solve, as long as there were new frontiers to explore and new challenges to face, the story would continue. That was the gift humanity had given the galaxy. Not technology, not power, not even knowledge. They had given the gift of endless possibility. And that was worth more than anything the Federation could ever have offered. Maya's transport arrived at the research station. She stepped out into a room filled with scientists from 100 worlds, all of them buzzing with excitement about what they had discovered. "Show me," she said. They showed her signals from beyond the universe, messages from beings that had never existed in their reality, proof that there was more out there than anyone had ever imagined. Maya looked at the data and smiled. A new adventure was beginning. And she could not wait to see where it would lead.